So now we are going to be solving an equation that requires the use of the zero product rule and some factoring on the left-hand side. Remember that you cannot set x equal to -6, x minus 7 equal to -6, because the zero product rule says it must be set equal to 0. So that means I need to get this -6 to the other side of the equation first. And before I do that, I'm going to use my distributive property and distribute the x times x, which is x squared, x times -7 minus 7x. So if that equals -6, then I'm going to be adding a positive 6 to both sides of the equation and getting x squared minus 7x plus 6 equals 0. So now that I have it set equal to 0, I can use the zero product rule, which means if I can get factors on the left-hand side, I can set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So in order to factor the left-hand side, we're going to use our regular diamond method with a positive 6 on top and a -7 on the bottom. I need the pair of numbers that multiply to be 6 but add to be -7. If you don't see it, all the factors of 6 are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3, so it has to be one of those two. If you're getting a positive 6 but a -7, both of these numbers are going to have to be negative, like a -1 times -6, which multiplies to be a positive 6 but adds to be a -7. So remember, we don't need to split the middle term when there's a coefficient of 1 in front of the x squared, so these -1, -6 are just parts of my factors. X minus 1 times x minus 6 equals 0. Then, remember, the zero product rule says if I have something times something equaling 0, then either the first something equals 0 or the second something equals 0. So I solve each of these for x, add 1 to both sides here, x equals 1, or if I add 6 to both sides here, x equals 6. So these are my solutions to my equation up here. If I asked you to check it, you could plug the 1 back in for x here and here, and you would get 1 times 1 minus 7 should equal -6, which 1 minus 7 is -6, and 1 times -6 is -6. So that checks for the x equals 1. If you plug 6 in here and here, you will get 6 times 6 minus 7 should equal -6, and 6 minus 7 is a -1. 6 times -1 equals -6, and that is true because -6 equals -6. So we've checked both of those solutions, and they both work in the original equation, so we have solved this equation for x.